habitable zone that is able to have life on planets surrounding those stars.
It is just the right place with a star of the right temperature and a planet at the right distance for there to be a lot of liquid water on the surface where the chemistry of life began and evolved into us.
The overall range of the galactic habitable zone extends from about 13,000 to 35,000 light years from the center of the Milky Way. The main part where we are ranges from 20,000 to 29,000 light years from the core.
We thought that we were the center of our universe.
At the center of the Milky Way, sucking matter and even light into it, is Sagittarius. O-type stars are giants. They're hotter than the sun, 10 to 50 times as massive, and throw out titanic amounts of ultraviolet radiation. With these stars, you don't worry about sunburn, but extinction.
It's probably not easy to survive in an environment where you're in a tight cluster with a lot of O-type stars.
O-type giants can destroy planets before they form.
The radiation from these stars is so strong that it actually sweeps the material away from these newly forming would-be planetary systems and rips it out of the orbit of their stars. Don't get too close.
Like a city between a desert and an ocean, our corner of the galaxy thrives between two different, inhospitable regions. With the elements of life and without the threat of intense radiation, it seems like our neighborhood is literally the only place to live. But is our place in the Milky Way really so exclusive?
The idea of the galactic habitable zone is that if you're too close to the center of the galaxy, there's all these crazy things going on and you have to go offline. To be honest, I'm personally skeptical of the idea because I think that life can happen in all sorts of environments, or at the very least, we don't know. So we should be
CQ, this is Engine Operations Harvest Leader to Harvest Base. Repeating, I'm calling for Engine Operations Harvest Leader, seeking Engine Harvest Base. Go ahead, Harvest Leader. Yeah, the operation has suffered severe casualties, and the survivors are now in mortal danger. I need you to send rescue immediately. Our coordinates here are, according Temperatures are 9 degrees, 58 minutes north, 85.
Alright, I'll put this as simply as I can. Everybody on Earth is dead to you. Let me explain why. Wrapped around the Earth is an invisible field of energy. It's made up of electricity and magnetism, so it's called the electromagnetic field.
Precious Lord, with my whole heart.
It's where we get our magnetic north pole. It's how it protects us from cosmic radiation. So this EM field is all but now that field is falling apart. Is there any chemical issues? But this field, that's your stress. That's what we live on. It's 30 miles thick. The meat here, call it net. We're getting all the transitions. It's like 2,000 miles thick. The core, the Peachtree Center, that's a tricky one. There's two parts. The inner core and the outer core. The inner core is, it's a big solid chunk of iron, we think.
almost unparalleled in its destructive capabilities. Then why would you restart his run? The horrors in our heads, Ultron himself, they all came from the Mind Stone. And nothing compared to what it can unleash. Everything on our side. Is it? Are you? On our side. Side of life. Ultron is it. You will end it all. It's winning. You? So go ahead. It's got to hurt you. Before all hurt you. Give her the monster.